Hello and welcome to World Talks here on TVP World with me, Anna Kalczyńska. Good evening. It got to stop, says Donald Trump, and suggests Ukraine should not be as obstinate as to defending the territory it has lost to Russia. Since much of the territory in dispute has been reduced to rubble, Trump alludes to the necessity of concessions on the Ukrainian part. So where are we in the process? Is the time for peace talks approaching? To elaborate on this awaited negotiation process, I'm joined by Bohdan Nahaylo, editor-in-chief from Kiyv Post. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. How are you?
So my first question, an obvious one, would be how would you comment on the statement by President-elect from the Mar-a-Lago conference? Does it mean that negotiations are already ongoing and that Donald Trump is shedding some light here?
No, I think this is hot air. This is typical Donald Trump. He needs to be saying something. He needs to be seen to be active and projecting ideas. In fact, I don't think there's any substance there, because he's not in a position to dictate terms or to offer terms, not until he comes into office in January. There is no clear position that has emerged from his advisors other than what we heard months ago from them. So I think this is all an element of bluster to seem important and to hog the limelight, as the British would say, and no real substance. But, you know, returning to what you said at the very beginning, Ukraine should be prepared to give way, shall we say. Was America prepared to give way after Pearl Harbor? Didn't it just say, okay, well, the Japanese sank our fleet, they attacked us. Okay, let's forget about it. Let's compromise somehow. You know, I mean, different rules for different folks. I think that at the end of the day, Trump realizes that he can't just get away with this empty rhetoric, and that it's going to be much harder to bring the warring sides around the table, if at all that is possible, without flexibility and without him being a genuine peacemaker and involving not just himself, because he's not the king of the world, but involving Europe, involving Poland, France, Germany, Britain, etc., Ukraine's immediate neighbors, and not conducting himself as if I'm in charge now, I have been elected president, I can do it all. He's not going to fix it in 24 hours.
As he plans to. But as always, Trump declines to.
He declares that intention. Where is the plan? There is no plan.
Exactly. He declined to talk about the plan for the peace. He said today that it would become ineffective if revealed now. So what is the mood on the Ukrainian part? Are territorial concessions inevitable? I know you've said it's not part of the deal, but
it's not
realistically speaking.
Look, let's be honest and objective. Ukraine is under a great deal of pressure, 3 years almost, heavy losses, incessant attacks on the infrastructure, daily attacks by missiles and rockets, thousands of Ukraine's best who have perished and continue to die, millions of refugees. Obviously, this war has taken a huge toll, plus the barbaric methods that the Russians are using. So the Ukrainians, on the one hand, they know that it's a very, very difficult fight militarily, but they know that the option is destruction of Ukraine as not just as a state, but as a nation, because Putin is not simply saying, I want to win, I want to change the regime. He's saying there is no Ukraine. Ukrainians aren't a people. We don't recognize them. These are just Russians who don't want to be recognized as Russians, but we will force them to be Russians. So for us, it's an existential issue, not simply a military one, which I don't think the rest of the world understands, because they're not next door to this monster state and monster dictator. And they haven't been exposed to these sorts of rapacious policies for centuries, as the Ukrainians have.
Well, let me tell you this, here in Poland, next bordering Ukraine, we are aware of that.
Let me just continue for a second. That is, in this sense, sorry to be long-winded, that is, in a sense, the preamble. The reality is that probably most people now recognize that some kind of compromise will be imposed on Ukraine. Volens nolens, it will be because Ukraine is dependent on Western support, on support not just from America, but from all of its allies. Secondly, as Zelenskyy has admitted in recent days, it cannot militarily regain the lost territories. It can only do that diplomatically in the longer term. And thirdly, it needs the security guarantees. It cannot do it on its own. It cannot say, look, you don't want to support us, we'll fight a guerrilla war against Russia. It is saying, please, if you're not going to give us NATO membership immediately, because there's a war going on, at least give us something that we can console our population with. EU membership, speed it up, or, give us guarantees from an alliance of countries, but give us something. What have we fought for the last 3 years? Not just for ourselves, but in the name of democracy and in the name of Western values.
All right. So going back to what Trump has said today as well, he also mentioned that the decision made by the Biden administration of letting the Ukrainians strike the Russian territory with the U.S. long-range weapons was wrong, and that he wished he was consulted on this. As we know, he hadn't been. So do you consider this as talking of a president-elect not yet taking office, or rather you expect him to reverse the decision of Joe Biden in this respect?
I accept this as him squaring up with Biden and not being particularly pleased that Biden has made this move in his final weeks, and not wanting the thunder to be stolen from him. The limelight. So he's responding in this way. How will he react? We don't know. The point is that he has implicitly been snubbed, and let's not forget this, by Putin. Putin hasn't embraced him and said, thank God you're here and you're making a lot of sense. Putin's comments and signals have been very ambiguous, and I would say even negative as far as as far as Trump's image is concerned. I don't think that has gone down very well with Trump. I think he realizes that maybe he rushed into things too soon by saying, Vladimir Volodya is my friend and we can sort it out. Obviously, it's not going to work that way. Putin has his image to take care of. He's just lost big time in Syria. He's losing out in other parts of the world, in Africa and in parts of Eastern Europe. I mean, we focus on Georgia, but on the other hand, in Abkhazia, there are anti-Russian protests, etc. It's not easy for him. So for him, he wants to be seen as the tough guy that is going to bring something to the Russians after 3 years of war. And if it's not denazification, quote unquote, of Ukraine, it's at least stealing a chunk of Ukrainian territory in the east.
All right, so let's now turn to Ukrainian partners in Europe. Today, another 15th package of sanctions on Russian officials and enablers of Russia from China and North Korea have been approved in Brussels. So what is the significance of such moves? Are they effective? Do they produce a desired effect?
There's already been a protest that we have published, I think today or tomorrow maybe. Today, I think, in the Kiyv Post. Ukrainian civil rights groups have criticized this package as being very soft, as even being a step back compared to the previous ones, that it really is sort of mollifying, appeasing the Russians, not being as tough as they should be at this stage of the game. So on the surface, it looks good. The EU is continuing to press Russia, but the substance is that it's allowing Russia to wriggle out and to get off the hook. So not everything that glitters is gold.
All right. Wednesday, European leaders are meeting in Brussels with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy and NATO Chief Mark Rutte to discuss, among others, the potential deployment of peacekeeping forces to Ukraine. So how realistic is this scenario, according to you?
I don't think it's realistic at the moment. It's a good idea that Macron has floated. I mean, Poland hasn't backed it, which is important for Ukraine. We don't know what the Brits think. They haven't declared themselves publicly on this. So far, it's Macron floating this. And the Ukrainians haven't said yes themselves. I think secretly they would have welcomed that, but their position has been that to say we don't want your boots on the ground in Ukraine. Just give us the weapons, give us the means, and we will fight with our own people. We're not asking you to come and fight for us. Just give us the tools with which to push the Russians out and to end this war. So I think that it's not particularly realistic. It sounds good, but things are heading on a trajectory that as such is unknown as to where it's heading. With Trump coming into office, with elections in Germany, with Macron in a weakened stage, with so many other factors happening, the far right in the ascendant, we are in a state of flux. And what seems unlikely today, just as giving Ukraine certain types of weapons did, from Leopard tanks to some of the missiles that Ukraine has received, that which seemed impossible a year or two ago suddenly becomes possible. Look at Germany's policy switches in the last 2 years, for instance. So as we talk about these things, it's more rhetorical and symbolic, but who knows what might happen, especially if Putin decides to fire another, nuclear-capable interballistic missile into Ukraine, or to say to Trump, look, forget it. I'm going to do what I want to do. Stay out of my game. Stay out of my backyard here.
Bohdan Nahaylo, thank you very much. Editor-in-Chief, Kiyv Post, thank you for your comments and your insights today. It was a pleasure, sir.
My pleasure, too.
And that concludes this edition of World Talks. But for more news and more comments, stay tuned to TVP World. Thank you for watching. See you soon.